I'm going to walk you through these slides this morning because I want you to take a different approach for your marketing meetup. I know we've been focusing on Facebook. We talk about Facebook pages, we talk about Facebook groups, and people get lost in the weeds of what you're trying to accomplish there and don't understand the reasons. Excuse me. So I'm going to give you a basic outline as to how I think a typical marketing meeting should go, and this is the way I conduct mine. Okay, so the very first thing is we're going to give you a basic agenda. There's going to be introduction, a declaration of purpose, explain your why, the evolution of Facebook, the future of business, and a master plan. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is that I'm going to give people an opportunity to introduce themselves. But before we do, I want them to do a little introduction exercise. So I give everybody something that they can write on, a little note card or whatever. And here are the rules for the introduction. I want to hear your marketing message. Because after all, I'm not there to hear that they're John Sheffield and they're the owner and CEO of an HVAC company. At this point, nobody cares. What I want to know is, why should I pay attention to you to begin with? Not just because you're in the room, but why should I pay attention to you? So that marketing message is extremely important, because if that's not integrated into everything that they do, then they're losing out to begin with. So I give them instructions, and here are the instructions that I want to hear their marketing message, but I want them to use these three things. Who do you help? Why do you help them? And how do you help them? Who do you help? Why do you help them? And how do you help them? So if I'm John Sheffield and I have an HVAC company, then how I want to make this exercise work is I'm going to tell people I help that couple who's building their first home make sure that they get exactly the right unit, the right air conditioning system that's going to maintain an even temperature throughout their house. And we're going to take a look at their blueprints, and we're going to walk them through the process of where do they want the unit to sit and how's it going to be best. And I want to help that new couple figure out where to put their first air conditioning unit in their first house that they build. Or I help people who have existing homes to find the perfect maintenance plan for their existing system. That's who I help. Why do I do that? I do that because I want people to enjoy. And so what you're doing is you're walking them through the process. How do I help them? Not only am I helping that couple, I want them to be able to enjoy their home for years to come, and I want them to have a good environment in which they live. And how do I help them? I help them by finding exactly the right unit with the right sound and all the stuff that's important to them. But I want to get through that process first before I ever hear your name and the name of your business. So walk them through that process, and I'm going to tell you the reason why that's so important. It is so important that you understand that, because what we're going to talk about next, we're going to talk about that magic introduction, and because you have exactly 15 seconds in a networking meeting to capture somebody's attention, and they make a decision as to whether they're going to pay any attention to you from that point on. I live in the South. We're very polite in the South. But if you don't capture my attention within 15 seconds, I will stand there and nod my head, and I will act like I'm interested, and I will bob my head up and down, and I will smile, and I'll be very pleasant, and I will not hear a single thing that you just said, because you didn't capture my attention in the first 15 seconds. If you go on about we have Sheffield's HVAC LLC, where we are certified with Carrier and Crane, and I don't care. You got 15 seconds to capture my attention, and I'm gone. On the internet, you have an 8-second rule to capture my attention, when I log on to your website, if you do not capture my attention in the first 8 seconds, I will take with one mouse click and click you into oblivion. But on Facebook, we have what we call the instantly rule on Facebook. I make a decision instantly. When I see that ad that scrolls through my news feed, and I see literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them a day, when I see that ad, I'm instantly making a decision. Do I scroll on or do I stop and look? Do I scroll on or do I stop and look? And it's taking me that long to make the decision, an instant decision. So if you start out by introducing me to your company and its legal LLC or CO or whatever it is and give me your title, you've already lost my attention. People don't care who you are. They only care about what you can do. That's true for your introduction if you're at a networking event. It's true for your introduction if you've got your website, and it's really important if you're going to be on Facebook. Now, do you understand what we're doing? We're building a case for what you're going to do with them. If you don't do this first, nothing that you say after that's going to make any sense. What you want to do with this piece is you want to make people uncomfortably comfortable. You want them to be just enough uncomfortable. I'm not really sure how to address that. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that. I'm not really sure how do I talk to people? How do I help people? Who is it that I help? You see, until they've really defined that, it's going to be very difficult for them to have a marketing message. And if they have a good marketing message, we'll be able to identify exactly who we're talking about here. I tell people, when they ask me what do I do, I say, if people have things that are complicated, I help them to make it simple. I do that because I'm really good at taking very complex things and making them very simple. So if you have anything more complicated than a Big Mac to sell, I can help you. Now, have I captured your attention? Have I given you a definition of who I help? Have I given you a definition of why I help them? Do you understand what we're doing here? That's the magic of an introduction. So the next thing, I introduced you the other day to what I call the parking lot, and that's just a sticky note that I stick on the wall, and there I'm going to put everybody's business. So as they make those introductions, I'm now going to mark them down on this parking lot. And as I mark them down on that parking lot, I'm going to keep track of who's there and what business that they're in. So if it is Ledbetter's Landscaping Company, I'm going to write down Ledbetter's and I'm going to put the category as landscape. So I have Ledbetter's Landscaping, or I have Sheffield's HVAC, or whatever it is. I'm going to list those on this whiteboard, or which isn't a whiteboard, it's a sticky note. You notice I've got a sticky note up here. It's a sticky note that I'm going to stick on the wall, and then I'm going to be able to bring it back the next time that we have a meetup. That carrying it from one meeting to the next lets people know that you've had some time to think about them. And so that's really an important step. What we're going to look at is basically what you find in this mind map here. And that is, we're going to take a look at the social media focus, but I'm also going to give you some things to help keep them coming back. And that was what the purpose of this was, is to help keep them coming back. When I collect the business cards, and I'm going to talk about that in the live feed today, when I collect the business cards, I've already talked about this before, well, I'm going to call you back. And when I call you back, I'm going to give you some information that might be helpful to you about your website. So I'm going to get them back. But our social media focus today, we're going to talk about who's on Facebook, what are they looking for, what are they doing, and what are they talking about. Because those things are going to help me, because the purpose of my business is to solve people's problems. I am a problem solver. And so I'm going to use these tools right here to discover what people's problems are, and I'm going to discover how to talk to them. So that's basically what we're going to do in that meetup. Is we're going to have a social media focus, but it's to help them with their business. We're not going to get lost in the weeds about about how a Facebook page works and how you're able to conduct your ads and all that kind of stuff. What I really want to do is I want to help them to understand the value of this. Okay, so we're going to focus on the problem solving aspect of business, and then finally I'm going to wrap up by letting them know that everything that they have is in the process of becoming obsolete. That'll be a really good news, I promise you. Very encouraging for their day. So here's the next thing we're going to talk: the problem solver's opportunity. Okay, so we have the problem solver's opportunity, and the problem solver's opportunity can be on Facebook. And here's what you're just going to discover on Facebook. So I'm going to ask these questions. What is the average age of a viewer? What's the average age of a viewer on Facebook? And most people do not know the answer to this. And here's the problem. If they hear you talking about Facebook and they think that the average age of the viewer on Facebook is 30, then they're not going to pay any attention to what you have to say. So they need to understand that the average age of the viewer on Facebook is probably their target market. If they're marketing to people who are between the ages of 45 and 60, then they're going to find that the bulk of those people are daily viewers on Facebook. They may know the exceptions to the rule, but that's the rule. And so when you talk about the average age of the viewer, that is extremely important to the business owner who's trying to figure out how is this going to work for me. What's the interest of the viewer? Facebook's a great place to find out what the interest of the viewers are. And so as I look at that neighborhood, as I look at the groups that they belong to and the pages that they've joined, what are their interests? And so I'm going to find out what their interests are. And you can do that with the graph search. And Facebook has some tools to help you with that. And I don't want to get lost in the tools. I just want to let them know that they can find out what the interest of the viewers are. This is going to be targeted marketing. I can find out what the activity of the viewers are. If I have a restaurant and I notice that people are always posting pictures of what they eat at the restaurant on Facebook, I'm going to train my wait staff to help them to engage in that activity. I'm going to create a Facebook friendly environment in my restaurant that's going to encourage that kind of activity. So I want to find out what's the activity of viewers. What is it that they're doing when they're with the things that they're sharing on Facebook, and how can I engage in that, because I can really become that problem solver when I do that. Now, I've given you two things. I want you to think about these a lot: the grocery store model and the billboard model. Grocery store will place items specifically in certain aisles that mimic the behaviors of people in that aisle. It allows them to become an impulse purchaser. Facebook advertising can do exactly the same thing, and that is create an impulse purchase. The other thing I want to use is the billboard model, and I want you to think about this for a moment. If you could imagine driving down the road and seeing a billboard on the side of the road, and there's 3 people in the car with you, and that billboard would reflect what is going through my mind. But the billboard would change for the person that's sitting next to me, and it would show him only the image that was in his mind. And the lady that's sitting in the back seat, it would only show what was in her mind. If you could have a billboard that would magically change the message based upon the thinking and the behavior of the people in my vehicle as I'm driving down the road, how powerful would that billboard be? That is exactly what we can do on Facebook. Now, when I come back, I'm going to answer some questions here with these things. So I'm going to stop the video right here because I'm hitting up against my time limit, and then I'm going to pick up the next video and we're going to come in right here. Okay?